Hi everyone, new update on Hexed Gardens. I added some new mechanics and animations. Shady now can parkour, bounce off walls and climb onto ledges. This is already a good basis for developing levels and creating game situations. She also finally received a long-awaited blade and can swing it around. The next step is to make environmental hazards and adversaries. Also, I have to finish the attack. At this moment it doesn't affect the environment. At first I wanted to make a slightly different attack, like a combo of 3 attacks with an epic ending where Shady hides the sword in her palm like like a magician. But when I started implementing it in code, it felt quite clunky. Overall, I'm happy with how Shady controls feels at this stage. She seems quite nice to control. I added coyote timing to jumping and the platforming now feels a lot nicer, so it is possible to make platforming sections a little more difficult. I also spent a lot of time implementing ledge climbing. Unfortunately, there were no ready-made solutions that worked in my code, and I had to experiment for a long time to develop suitable mechanics. Shady also takes a more compact board stance if she is close to the edge of the platform, to avoid standing with her foot in the air. Also, this is still could not be avoided. I also spent many hours on bugfix. I have not much experience in game development and I make a lot of mistakes. Reinvent solutions that already exist and sometimes even encounter situations where ready-made solutions could not be found. As a result, the code turns out to be clumsy and monstrous. Even worse is the fact that I want to take in account a lot of animation subtleties, such as the fact that the Shady hangs in different ledges in different poses, or for example cannot bounce off a wall unless she has something to step on, or the fact that the collider changes shape depending on her pose. Only those who do nothing make no mistakes. And non-optimal code is better than non-existent one. So I'm more or less happy with my shitty code at this stage, and then I will try to refactor it. I was asked where the idea for Hexed Gardens came from. In general, the idea for the game, it seems, can come from 3 different sources. The first option is games that grew out from some kind of mechanics. The developer came up with an interesting mechanic or a set of mechanics, and then some kind of visuals and the story will be added to it later. Sometimes, however, such games stay without visuals, or without story, or without both, and they can still be great games, like Tetris. The second option is games that grow from visuals. Someone drew a beautiful visual and wanted to make a game out of it. It is cool when characters that you drew come to life, run, jump, fight, and generally live their own lives. But the problem may rise here that the game will be weak in the terms of game mechanics and gameplay. But if the game is beautiful and has a good story, this can compensate for the game design problems. And the third option is games that grow out of story. The developer read an interesting story and wanted to implement it, or he came up with the story himself. This is something akin to the craft of writing or developing a script for a cinematic. But in this case, there is one interesting difference: interactivity. You cannot simply write a game script in the same way as a book, because the reader of the book is an outside observer. He does not affect the events, unless we are talking about ergodic literature. In the game, the player is a direct participant in the events. His actions are important, his decisions can change the course of the story being told. There is of course a fourth option: take a successful game and make a clone. But let's not talk about sad things. If we talk about Hexed Gardens, then there is probably a little of all three options. Sometimes I want to implement mechanics that I have rarely or never seen in other games. The problem is that I play games quite rarely, and there are few games that I really like. Therefore, I can reinvent the wheel just because of a little experience. So I end up with different ideas for game mechanics that need to be layered on top of the backbone that still needs to be created. The visuals began to take shape a long time ago when I was thinking about making a tabletop game. But mostly these are ideas of individual characters or vague images that are very difficult for me to draw. I'm a bad artist. Most of the problems are with backgrounds and environments. Sometimes there is an image in my head, but crooked hands cannot realize it. And sometimes there is not even an image. The wall building is probably the most complex thing that goes back to the childhood. There are many individual images in my head that describe individual aspects of the world. But to put everything together you need to do a lot of work. Perhaps I will devote a little more time to the origins of world building in future videos.